about them Irish?
I can't take it anymore. I need a national championship.
This is the Four Horsemen podcast.
And we are back. Welcome to the Four Horsemen podcast. I'm your host, Dylan, joined by Steve as always, and unfortunately. And this week we got a special guest. You heard him a few weeks ago before actually COVID took out the Notre Dame football team. So hopefully it's better luck this time. Please welcome Michael from Twitter. You guys know him well. You know what? He was just so good last week. We had to have him on again. So Michael, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Don't jinx me with the COVID stuff. I don't want to be that guy.
That's on you.
If something happens, we'll have to have a long talk about my involvement.
Causation and correlation. I get them mixed up, you know.
Dude, I'm superstitious as anything. I came home from my son's t-ball game just in time to watch Tyree take a knee in the end zone, and I was sitting in which I'm not proud to say, LSU Tigers colors coach's jersey. Sat down and watched the first half of the game, and I was like, I need to change my shirt. My jersey's wrong.
Yeah,
apparently
I'm very. I stick to my game day jersey all the time myself. I definitely have and I'm sure all our listeners do too. Which I think would be a fun experiment to do this upcoming game day. Is everyone tweet us their game day outfits? That'll be fun.
Yeah, and everybody, whatever you typically do, whatever your norm, your superstition is, please do it. Don't get lazy with it. It has bad repercussions, as we learned.
I've got a game day jersey, but not because I'm superstitious, just because I bought the jersey, or I got it at least. So I got a Montana 77 green one, which I love. So I wear that for game days. And I'm not a superstitious person, but for sure during Notre Dame games, I get really wacky. And the one time, this was on the podcast on our first season, I wasn't wearing my Notre Dame socks when we were playing USC, and it was the last game of the year to get into the playoff, and we were losing at halftime. So my girlfriend ran into the room to find my socks to give them to me. We ended up winning. So, always wear the socks.
It works.
So let's get unfortunately into this game here. Notre Dame beats Louisville, and that's about the extent of the good news. It was 12-7. That extends our home winning streak to 22 games, which is really impressive. And we now have a 10 straight winning game in the NCAA, which is leading everyone else in the country. In terms of just how you enjoyed the game, Michael, I'll let you go first. Just what are your initial thoughts?
I put this on Twitter. You may have seen it, and it actually a blue and gold illustrated writer kind of retweeted it to a degree. If our offense was a firework, it was a dud. Best case scenario, it was a fancy sparkler. And the issue with that is you included other podcasts, myself, anyone who's watched Notre Dame this year and looked up how Louisville had been playing defensively. You're thinking, 40 points, easy. No questions asked. 40 points. Where were the fireworks? Oh, my God. There was nothing. Book seems afraid to throw the ball downfield, not sure. And Steve, you'll appreciate this. The windy excuse to me is like when you're on the golf course and you're the guy who misses the 5-footer all the time, and then you miss it with your buddies, and you're like, but they just aerated the grass. That's why I missed it.
Hey, you know what? Listen, I need my every excuse possible on the golf course. So
but that's what it felt like when Book was blaming the wind. I'm like, okay, fine. We'll use game 4, the wind. Please explain games 1 through 3 then. Mm-hmm. It's a convenient excuse in yesterday's game, but okay. I had serious withdrawals watching our offense when I expected so much more. And meanwhile, the defense is just laying the wood outside of one pass that, I'm sorry, that was just a great design by Louisville. They set it up to where you got 2 linebackers chasing probably their fastest guy on the team. What do you expect to happen? They set up a 1st and goal at the 1. It is what it is. But when you're competing with your defense to score. Like, who's going to score a touchdown? The defense or the offense? That's a problem.
Did you have any heart attacks? Like, how was your mental health during the game?
There was definitely some yelling at the TV in the first half. In the second half, there were moments, but the fact that we shut them out in the second half, or not second half, but after the first drive, just I don't know. I think I got all my yelling out, and I accepted the fact that this offense is not going to do anything. But like you said, Dylan, there was never a doubt that we were going to lose the game. It's weird. It was that close, and I was just sitting there going, "We're going to win." Like, I was perfectly comfortable in terms of like my heart rate. I was frustrated. I was still yelling, but it was. I felt like a coach. Like, you're being critical when you need to be critical, but you're confident in what the outcome was going to be.
I felt frustrated with how many stoppages there were in the game. It was a really boring game. But Steve, I want to ask you, because I know you were enjoying some Guinnesses over the course of the game. How are you feeling as a whole?
Well, thankfully, I only had 4, and that means I was coherent. Usually a couple of glasses of wine and a 6-pack will put me a little bit over the edge because I'm getting old and just can't put them down like I used to. But stuck to my 4, had a nice little buzz going, and just wasn't the ideal Saturday. It would have been nice to score at least 21 points or step on the throats at the end, and I'm sure we'll cover that in great detail here. I mean, all great points that you made, Mike. In regards to everything, we were down 7-6, and at no point was I concerned. I did even, in fact, tweet out, Notre Dame is going to come back to win this game. That's like, I know that's going to happen. I know it's probably going to be by 10 points or less, and it's not that I'm concerned. It's just that I'm annoyed. We should be winning pretty big against inferior opponents. Good teams win, great teams cover. The win sucks, but you got to find a way to just move the ball one way or another. And in a monsoon, Michigan was able to. I'm sorry to bring that up, but in monsoons, other teams are able to adapt to those circumstances and those situations, and we seemingly do not. Now, one thing I do want to note, and we're going to get pretty analytical into yards per attempt and the whole 9 in regards to Book and his performance, which I don't think was terrible by any means, but definitely obviously wasn't his best. Do you guys think, Dylan, I'll defer to you first, and then Mike, you can weigh in as well. Do you think that, and I'm pretty impressed so far this season with Coach Tommy Rees, the offensive coordinator. Do you think that he's kind of given a very short leash to Ian? Do you think that he's bottling him up and just trying to make everything, timing plays, timing routes, keep it close to the chest, keep it 10 or 15 yards and in? Is that indicative of that he has just no confidence in Book? Does Book lack the confidence? What are your thoughts on the whole coaching situation and the way that the offense is run in general?
Yeah, I think you said it best there when you said short leash. I think there's evidence to suggest that. Before I completely answer, I think Tommy Rees was doing a really good job at the start of the game. And then things got really wacky on offense. I mean, the play calls turned uber conservative in a way that did not help us at all. And you'll see if you follow ND football stats and analytics, they posted today the amount of throwing attempts that we try after an incompletion is near the bottom of the country. So the rate at which we throw the ball after an incompletion is almost nothing, which is a little problematic because it does suggest that Tommy Rees has a short leash on Ian Book, and that whenever something doesn't go right, he doesn't want to go back to it. And I think part of it, too, is just the pressure of having such a good offensive line and having so much running success early in the season, which we said was not sustainable. But when that pressure's on you internally, within the fan base, within the coaches, within the players, I think that you don't want to throw the ball too much when you know that you got good guys that can run the ball there. So I think it is partly that. I think it's definitely a leash situation. But I'm interested to hear what Michael thinks about it.
Okay, so I I actually talked to you, Dylan, a little bit about the passing offense. I don't know. I don't know if it's a short leash or Book's unwillingness to take a chance. I think it's somewhere in the middle because if you do get, and I don't have an all 22 or anything like that, but if you do have opportunities to see from behind him or a wide view, you do see some deeper routes being run. And in some cases, you see some open receivers. And open defining as D1 open, you're not like running free, but you're open. And Book's just not doing it. And, I mentioned Dylan, I focused on the yards, how many yards he's throwing. And while, yes, our offense is designed around our run game and it's a very effective run game, we got a great two-back system right now with Kyron and Tyree. But when your Notre Dame quarterback, number 4 team, now number 3 team in the country, is the 11th ranked passer in the ACC based on yards, that's concerning to me. We're not the Big 12. We're not, in this high-flying conference now for the 1 year. Ranked 11th, I don't like that. But then you look at the receivers. He at least used to have like a favorite receiver, a go-to guy. Not only his yards down, our number 1 receiver is Tremble, and I had it all written out here. Tremble ranks 53rd in the ACC in catches because he only has 10. That's our leading receiver in number of catches. Yardage is McKinley with like 121, which ranks 198th nationally. Our best receiver is almost ranked 200th in the country in yardage, and he's played every game. It's not like you're looking at Lindsey who missed some time or it's just the numbers are not great. And I mentioned that because yesterday there weren't as many deep routes, but throughout these first 4 games, he's just not pulling the trigger. And so while it might be a shorter leash, I think if you're looking at a short leash, all of Book, it's in the middle with slight scale leaning towards Book's indecision and lack of trigger pulling. I mean, it's got to come at some point because facts are facts. I saw something, and maybe it was because you tweeted it, Dylan, but right now Notre Dame is passing at a rate that rivals Air Force, Navy, and other triple option teams.
Oh,
That's
man.
a problem. That's not good. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to look forward to Clemson. Like I told you guys before we came on, I don't want to look forward to 4 games. But if our idea is that we're just going to run the ball and run the ball and run the ball, 2 things are going to happen. One of which is if you don't score in every possession, you're going to be behind the 8 ball because Clemson's going to come out firing. And I know every time we play Navy, I'm sure you guys think the same way. All we got to do is get up 2 scores because they don't have the offense to come back because they run the clock and they don't get enough possessions. That's what's going to happen to Notre Dame if we don't figure out how to throw the ball. Even on completions, forget yards per attempt, yards per completion books at like 12. Like, come on. We're not some also ran college football team. We're Notre Dame football. It's I don't know.
Mm-hmm. No, that's an excellent point.
Okay.
And I just double checked myself here. Through the first 4 games, Ian Book, 3 touchdown passes and 1 interception. And I think that only 1 interception, I don't think it was a bad one. I'm fairly certain it was basically it like bounced off a receiver's hands and tipped into somebody's into the defender, if I remember correctly.
I think you're right.
Yeah. So Ian does an incredible job, all things considered, of protecting the ball. And as we mentioned, expect what you're going to get out of the guy at this point as a fifth year senior, third year starter. He's not going to be a Heisman candidate, even though there was some chatter at the beginning of the year. He's a game manager, and that's okay. And that's what we need, so to speak. But we also need a guy to step up and fill the role. And you just can't be afraid to throw an interception. You have to go up and just get that ball down the field. And yeah, you don't have in recent years, you lost Chase Claypool, you lost Miles Boykin, St. Brown is, he wasn't on the team while Bookie was there, but we don't have that really marquee guy currently on the roster, and that's okay. There's plenty of teams around college football that have 3-star wide receivers, 2-star wide receivers. If you look at Iowa State or Washington State or Mississippi State, and they're able to get production through the passing game because they have guys that are not afraid to go out there and just sling the rock. And if you throw a pick, it happens. It happens, Ian. Like at a certain point, you have to stop dancing around and you have to just trust your guys who, by all means, are all 4-star guys. They're all talented. They're all big bodies by and large on this offensive side of the football. You have to just throw a 50-50 ball up. And if it gets picked, it gets picked. But you have to keep the defense honest, because when they start, stacking the box and we become predictable, that's when you saw a couple of corner blitzes coming off that were putting added pressure. And, to blitz a corner against a quarterback, you are basically saying we do not respect your ability to go over the top. Because at that point, you're saying, oh, we're going to forfeit you going over the top. We're going to anticipate you just throwing short. We're going to we're going to blitz the corner. The linebacker's going to pick him up because we know you're going to throw a slant, right, at a certain point. So you have to keep the defense honest, let them know, okay, if you want to bring heat, that's fine. I'm going to get one out there, 20, 30 yards downfield, and we're going to see what happens. And maybe it's incomplete. Maybe it's picked off. But to give them that, the idea of a threat is coming, I think that would be massive. And Mike, did you have a point to make real quick?
Well, I was just going to say, let me ask you guys a question. I want both to answer. Saturday night, Florida State was beating North Carolina 31-7. If that was Notre Dame, where would your confidence level be? Now, I understand North Carolina didn't come back and win, but they made it damn interesting when I didn't think they were going to. Do you think Ian Book and our receivers and everything would have been able to throw the ball around the way North Carolina did to even come close to making that comeback? And for me, I don't have that. I'm on the fence about it. Maybe not. I wouldn't be sitting here going, absolutely, let's watch it happen.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to put an exact percentage on it, I'd say 60% chance at not coming back, 40% chance at coming back. So, 40% chance being down big is still decent. I have enough confidence in the program that eventually, if we're down that much, we're just going to have to spread it out and increase our chances of getting the ball downfield. So I wouldn't say that we would be dead to rights against an inferior opponent or an opponent on the same playing field as us. When it's a top level opponent, those chances go down astronomically. So that's my thoughts on the matter. But Dylan, I'll defer to you now.
Yeah, I think just by virtue of being down, you're going to get more passing calls, and then I would feel better about getting into the game. We saw in the USF game, we saw in the Florida State game, we can move the ball offensively, right? We were looking pretty magical in that Florida State game, going forward with some exceptions. So I'm not too worried about coming back into games. With the talent we have and with the quarterback we have, I think we can do it for sure. I think it's play calling, and I think a lot of it is situational, and I think one of the reasons why the yardage is so low is because we've been winning these games, and the offensive line has been so good with running the ball that what's the point? We're up 20, let's just kill the clock, run the ball. But something I wanted to ask you guys, because I had a point from some stats here. Who do you think, because I think part of it is a personnel issue, like you guys mentioned, who are your top 3 receivers? Like if you were the coach and you're starting 3 of them out there, who are you picking?
I'll start. To your point, I wrote down that, like, who is to blame? Is it the O-line? Is it the wide receivers? Is it Book? And I was going to mention, and this fits right in perfectly, there's so many passing downs where it was you had to pass, and you see Book scrambling, and in a few occasions he did tuck it too early or whatever. But there were plenty of obvious, hey, our receivers aren't getting open. So what is it going to take for Jordan Johnson, Xavier Watts, et cetera, to get on the field? But to answer your question, Dylan, top 3, Lindsey, but apparently he had some sort of hamstring thing. But Lindsey's definitely my number 1. He needs to be on the field. He can change the game. I don't care if his route running isn't precise. Look at Will Full in the NFL. I mean, he was a slightly better route runner, but speed kills. It's facts. After that, McKinley just fell off any type of momentum he had going by dropping every ball that Chase Claypool caught last year. Like, you got to come down with those, dude. Kevin Austin would be 2. And then I don't know if there's a third. That's the problem.
Oh, that's exactly my point, right? And I think that's what, Steve, you were going to say as well, right? Lindsey and Austin.
Yeah, at the very least, you have Lindsey and Austin out there, and then you mix up this, whether it's pushing one of those guys into the slot when you get Javon onto the field, or I would have Swarnick, honestly, in the slot as well, and then Lawrence.
That's fine. I'm sorry, I didn't want to make it into a deep discussion about that. I just wanted to basically affirm that we all had basically Lindsey and Kevin Austin as our top 2 receivers. And this is a tweet, I know you guys saw it, from Pete Sampson, who actually went through the numbers and found out how many snaps each receiver played. Javon McKinley, 59 snaps. Ben Skowronek, Skowronek, 45 snaps. Avery Davis, 22 snaps. Kevin Austin, 22 snaps. And then Lindsey and Joe Wilkins had 2 snaps each. There's the problem. Your best players aren't on the field. And apparently Lindsey did have something wrong, a tweak, but there's no reason Kevin Austin shouldn't be getting 50 snaps a game. Yeah, I don't know why McKinley,
he should definitely be out there.
And a very average receiver from Northwestern is getting those snaps. And I think that's part of it, right? Part of it is we're not getting open. Part of it was play calling. I mean, we were saying in the group chat and just tweeting it with each other, how many times in the fourth quarter was there either one safety or no safety on Louisville's defense? They were blitzing, and that's why Book had so many sacks, right? They were committing men. Yeah. The box was stacked. That's why we only averaged a few yards per run. But the receiving options were there, and they just weren't throwing it. They wouldn't call a play action pass. They would not call anything. You need to stretch the defense, and especially when it's a single high safety, or if the safety is both safeties are in on the box, right? Like, you got to go over the top with some of the speed we do have. And I think that's part of the problem, right? That is why the production just hasn't been there and was so bad in that game.
For sure. And if there's ever one safety or 0 safeties, 100% of the time you have to throw a 50-50 ball down the sideline. That's it. I mean, you have a speedster on one side that can run a 4.2. On the other side, you have a guy that's 6'3", 6'4". He's not Chase Claypool. He's not going to go up and grab every ball, but that's why it's called a 50-50 ball, because it's not a 100% ball. It's give your guy a chance. And when a cornerback has his back turned to him and he has no safety help, I like our odds.
And the thing I found interesting, the balls Kevin Austin caught, did he or did he not look healthy and capable of running a full route tree, et cetera, et cetera? So to your point, Dylan, Pete Sampson also threw a little caveat in there with how many passing plays those guys ran. Because having McKinley and Skowronek as the most plays played isn't in itself completely shocking, because they are our best blockers. That's been established. They're big, they can block, and our offense is designed behind the run. Okay, fine. Put them out there. They're going to be out there for a lot of plays. But when you look at the passing plays, they were still out there for most of the passing plays. And that's where it gets a little, okay, hold on. I get that they can block, but you have better receiving options on your team. And that's why I asked what needs to happen and we're not at practices, obviously, but when does Jordan Johnson get an opportunity to see the field, this 5-star receiver? I think he's a 4-star. Watts? 4-star?
Yep. 4-star.
When does he get an opportunity?
I wonder if they're trying to save a freshman season, like a redshirt season.
Wait, that's the thing. There's no redshirt season this year. Our entire team could come back next year if they choose to do so because of this COVID stuff. We could have the whole same team next year. We could have Book could be back. Everybody, whole O-line, everybody. So my thing is, if you put them out there,
don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby?
Right? Yeah, no kidding. But why not? Let's see what they can or can't do. Okay, so if they make a mistake or whatever, like Johnson did get his one chance, he got a 15-yard unsportsmanlike. Okay, that wasn't great. But if the guy's got talent, I mean, we got to do something. Why are we playing? Right?
Why are we playing Michael Mayer but not Jordan Johnson? And that's not a dig on Mayer. I mean, he's fantastic. But you put Johnson in those same situations. You telling me he couldn't have a good freshman season?
That's the point. You're not even giving them the opportunity to do great or do bad. You're trotting the same stuff out there every week, and it's.
And to compound upon that, it's not like you're getting top line production from the seniors and the leaders. You know, it'd be one thing if we have Javon going out there averaging 75 to 100 a week. By all means, I would absolutely love to see that. And I literally think that Javon actually has the talent to do that. But the numbers aren't there. The production isn't there. You got to shake it up and let every single guy know that you can't take it down off, because I don't care if you're a fifth-year senior or a true freshman. The guy who's going to get the job done is the guy who's going to get it done. And you got to recycle and try every single guy on the roster. Joe Wilkins, the only game that I've really seen him produce, first game against Duke, 4 catches. He was absolutely pivotal. He had, I think, at least 2, possibly 3 huge third down catches keeping us alive in that game. You know, there's nothing wrong with putting Joe Wilkins in. Like, come on. Like, we got basically, I think what we're all getting at is we need to shake it up. We need to move forward, as a program and start to realize that, this, the dink and dunk isn't going to work. It will, to a degree from one drive to the next, but long term, every single drive, it's just not happening.
It feels like which Notre Dame has been this way too long, play not to lose versus play to win. And that to be elite, to be where Clemson and Alabama are, you can't play not to lose. That's not elite football. That might be winning most of your games football, but it's not elite football.
Yeah, no, I think that's well said. And with that said, should we maybe get into the game? Recap a little bit. I know we had an excellent conversation there on some of the nuanced stuff, but just the game itself, right, was bizarre that we didn't put them away. But and like you said, and like the podcast tweeted, at no point did I feel like we were going to lose that game, even when it was a 5-point game and Louisville scores on their last possession, and we're all of a sudden needing to score to win the game. And the reason for that too is I think there's validity to it. I think this game was not nearly as close as people think. And I know it feels like people just look at the scoreline sometime and then just judge that's how the game's going. You got to understand there's a lot of underlying things going on in the football game. And that's why Notre Dame, when everything was said and done, had a 97.6 win probability. So after everything was done, when you look back on it and run like the simulations of, well, how often would you win? Notre Dame still won 97% of the time. That is very like a blowout. But the score was tight. And the reason for that is we couldn't convert in the red zone. We had, 4 trips and scored 1 touchdown. We had a fake field goal, which was just mind-blowingly... I like the idea to go for it, but why are you running it from 25 yards? I don't get it.
Real quick. I get that our punter holder was a high school quarterback. Okay, he's got some athleticism. Maybe have him throw the ball if he was a quarterback from that distance. Mm-hmm. I understand we only need to get to the 4 for the first down, but still, you're asking him to run about 20 yards. And it's not a punt. The whole 11 guys are on the line trying to stuff the ball back down your throat. It's just ugh. It gives me the chills. Yeah,
it was brutal. But those are missed opportunities, right? This game could have been 28-7 if you score. And I know if and buts and whatever, it wasn't. But we did control most of the game, right? And just some quick top-line stats. First downs, 24-13 for Notre Dame. That's not a close game, right? We had a above 50% third down conversion rate, which was actually quite awesome and an improvement from last week. So that's something to always keep an eye on. But we averaged 100 more yards. And at the end of the day, we were in their end more than they were in ours. So, yeah, the score was bad. We didn't play particularly good. But we were better. Like, we were comfortably better than Louisville. We were controlling that game. Our time of possession was perhaps 10 minutes more, something ridiculous like that. One more thing I want to get into, too, and this is something we try to talk about how great our run game is. Even with the best offensive line in the country, you cannot expect to be averaging over 8 yards a carry, right? That's not sustainable, and this is why you still have to be a pass-first offense, right? Because that's where the efficiency is. Unless they can't stop your run game, you have to be nuanced with it. But just to give you an example, we don't have the EPA stats yet from Notre Dame Analytics, but Notre Dame was averaging 4.7 yards per rush. Last week it was 8.4. How do you stop that? Well, it's putting people in the box. It's playing better teams. It's scheme, right? You cannot expect to just pound the ball like you did against Florida State and USF every week. It's just not possibly sustainable, which is why there's such a need to have Ian Book play and to throw the ball and to get people open and to stretch the field. And Book, like you said earlier, Steve, he didn't have necessarily the worst game in the world. I mean, he did look sketchy early in the game. It looked like people were jumping his routes. He was telegraphing something was going on. But his QBR for the whole game was 64.8. Not great, but, I mean, think about it. We're hoping he gets into the high 70s. So it was a below what we wanted performance, but it wasn't like Book is the whole reason here. There was a lot going on. So, Michael, I'll let you take it away there.
Well, talking about the run game, 4.7 isn't bad. Kyron and Tyree combined for 174 yards. That's good. That's great. That's wonderful. And, we're sitting here, the receivers, this and that. There were 2 plays. Michael Mayer should have had 2 touchdowns yesterday. How Book overthrew him, I don't know, up the seam. And then the ball at the sideline that almost got picked. If Book just throws that ball instead of floating it, Mayer walks in for a touchdown. But Book saves the lasers for the guy who's 5 yards away from him. Throws a rocket at his face. But it's just little things like that where that was the Mayer pass where you overthrew him. Perfect play design. You got to hit that guy. And that if he caught it, it would have reminded me of when Kyle Rudolph would just run up the seam almost every game. And then up the side, you just got to put it on him. But to expect 8 yards a game or 8 yards of carry every game is not realistic. 4.7 to 5 is realistic, and it would be nice to get to maybe 6. But you can't be mad when Williams and Tyree went for 174. That was not the problem.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the issue is that you keep going to it, right? So 4.7 is fine if you're running it 15 times a game. When you're running it and not throwing it, that's when I get just a problem because you get more yards when you throw the ball. It's just more efficient. So I'm happy with 4.7. We ran the ball fine, but the only thing I'm getting is we're not going to average over 8 a game like we did against FSU. That's just as good as offensive line is. We're not going to do that. And if we go into Clemson thinking, hell, we're going to average 4.5 yards per carry and we're going to win this football game.
It's going to be more like 3.5 to 3 if we're lucky.
If we're lucky. And even if it was 4, you're not going to be able to compete with Clemson's offense if you're running Navy-style offense. It's just like you said, Michael. So I didn't mean to make it seem like the running backs were poor by any means or the offensive line didn't perform well. I just think that those numbers should be suggestive. Well, hold on. We maybe shouldn't be a run the ball down your throat 3 out of every 4 downs.
This is our offense. You ready for this? Our only touchdown came on a broken play. That's how well designed our offense is running yesterday. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
We scored a touchdown, fantastic, and it was on a broken play. Which, by the way, give Book credit for ridiculous athleticism to get the ball in the end zone. But still, we can't be scoring on broken plays.
That's Book's benefit that he's never quite, I think, mastered in the big moments against big teams yet is using his legs. And if you remember, I want to bring this up when we talk about Clemson for Clemson Week, because I actually see a lot of parallels with the 2018 Michigan game. But that's what Brandon Wimbush broke Michigan's back with, were all those big runs for first down. We didn't expect it. And I don't want to get ahead of ourselves and talk about Clemson yet, but that's where Book can be useful, right, is those broken plays. He's got that ability, right? So it's funny, like you said, our only score was on a broken play, which goes to show how disorganized the offense was. But, there is some benefit to Bookie still, I think, is kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and to make a quick point, Book did throw a touchdown pass. It's just his receiver didn't get his foot down. Right. So that was one of the times we actually did get, stretch the field. We did get a nice, basically corner pocket in the end zone on a flag route to McKinley. And it was a pretty damn good pass. I mean, it's about as good of a pass as you're going to get. So make no mistake, Ian definitely has the talent there at certain pockets of the game. It just, it ended up being a little bit unlucky. His foot was, 6 inches out of bounds, not even, probably less.
Wasn't it Austin? I thought the pass was to Austin.
Was it Austin?
It was Austin.
It was
an athletic.
That talks more to why is that dude not on the field more? Yeah. If the field is 6 inches wider, that's a touchdown. And McKinley, who is bigger than the DB on the 2-point conversion, which that was a terrible call as well. You got to come down with that, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
I hate those back shoulder throws. They're not good passing plays.
It's good when you have
McKinley
Chase
didn't catch the
Claypool
ball.
or
I was
Michael.
gonna say if you got Claypool, you're fine.
Yeah, Michael Floyd hit from 2007 2008. Him and Jimmy Clausen, that was just the staple of that offense, and they were impeccable at it. And I wish we had that. We obviously don't. So Dylan, sorry I interrupted you there.
No, it's all right. Bring it up some ghosts. If I can, I think, because we have a guest this week will be a little longer, and I think nobody will complain about that. None of our listeners, because more content is always good. So I just moving on a little bit. I wanted to get in the Twitter audience. So we always send out a poll and ask for questions, and we bring it on the pod, right? Because we're looking for these interactions. We're happy to have you. So the poll we ran was, do you think yesterday's game was a one-off performance, or do you think it's a sign of things to come? It's a 60-40 split, so 60% of you think it's a one-off. 40% of you think it's a sign of things to come. And before I get into the question, I just want to ask you guys, what did you vote there? What do you think? What do you think with regards to this question?
So you might have seen. I think you retweeted what I said. I said that I want to say it's a one-off, and I feel like it is, but everything we've said for the last 40 minutes have kind of, unless something changes offensively to make a sparkler into an actual firework, it might be a sign of things to come, because that was the easy part of our schedule. And I realize there's really only Pitt is always a little thorn in our side, but we got Clemson, and regardless of what happened last night, North Carolina is still a pretty decent football team. Those are the games in front of us. And I'm sorry if we bust out some of the junk we've put on display the first 4 weeks, it's going to be a sign of things to come. So everything that happens especially in sports, life in general, but is an opportunity to learn from a mistake and get better and look back and review what you need to change or otherwise. And I feel like Brian Kelly and Tommy Rees better be having very similar conversations to what we're having today. We've got to be more explosive, or it is going to be a sign of things to come. But I do think it's closer to a one-off than it is a sign of things to come.
Yeah, that's a good analysis. I definitely think that this was more of a one-off. We talked about this briefly pre-podcast, which is, Notre Dame is always good for one stinker a year. I don't want to name all the games and all the teams, over the past couple of years, but every true blue fan. Yeah,
mostly just Pitt. Pitt every year.
It's usually Pitt, but then there's a couple of other stinkers that have been sprinkled in there along the way. Some that we've come out victorious, but too tight for comfort, and some that we've dropped in catastrophic form. But at the end of the day, Notre Dame, they're always good for one a year. So I'm going to be hopeful that this is just that one time. Not the greatest conditions down on the field. The team has been. Even at the very first kick, Mike Tirico said, this stadium seems a little bit quiet, seems a little bit, and no one really seems pumped up today. There's kind of an eerie feel to the air. So it's almost like he predicted it. And as soon as he said that, I said, here comes the stinker. I just know it. So hopefully this is the one that we can pull past and just leave behind as we move forward. I still think there's so many great components to the offense that we've been in individual instances, whether it's on a quarter by quarter or drive by drive basis, that we can build and expound upon going forward. And I'm confident that we will be. Coach Kelly is great. I'm confident in Coach Tom Rees. Hopefully he pulls back a little bit and lets Ian kind of do his thing and take some more chances. And maybe it's an Ian thing, maybe it's a Coach Rees thing, maybe it's both. Who knows? But I think that we're going to be okay in the long term. But being okay in the long term against a regular ACC schedule is different than the leader of the ACC, and I think we all know what that means. So.
Yeah, I think it's a one-off too, mostly because, you look at the win probability was still in the high 90s. It's not like it was a back-and-forth game where we scraped through it, right? It was we did control most of the game, even though it was inefficient and that we failed to really move the ball effectively. I also think, we played 3 other games fairly well. I know the Duke game was frustrating, but, USF was an absolute masterpiece. FSU was really good, and FSU is going to look a lot better too as the season goes on. So I think we have enough data there to say I don't think we're going to be struggling with the ACC other than, probably this game. So I think it's a one-off performance, but it could be a sign of things to come if things aren't fixed. And I think that's where you really hit the nail on the hammer. Hit the hammer on the nail, Michael. But we also threw out a question, and we promised to put the best responses onto the podcast. So Notre Dame's remaining schedule is Pitt, Georgia Tech, Clemson, Boston College, UNC, Syracuse, and Wake Forest. I want to know what you guys think the record in those 7 games will be, specifically the people who voted sign of things to come. And I'll just read through some of the responses here real quick. At Marvel Trooper, in quotations, with that schedule, I don't see how they are not in the playoff. Lou Holtz, probably. Thought that was quite funny, because you know how Lou is.
That's good.
Steve Quinton, at Steve Quinton. He's got a Canadian flag in his name, so I had to pick him out. A one-off. I think they will roll teams that they should roll. Wake, Hughes, Boston College, Georgia Tech. Don't think they will beat Clemson, and the other games should be close games. 6-1 is his prediction. Gary Roos said 7-0. He thinks we're going to run the table. He said nobody outside Clemson has as much talent. I also think if they commit to the run game against Clemson on a cold November night, they can limit the amount of possessions Clemson gets by eating up clock. And Clemson's run defense isn't their big strength. I think there's some truth to that too. I like the optimism there. But Michael, I'll let you give us your thoughts on that question.
Yeah, just it goes back to what I said earlier. It's like when we play Navy. I already know if you get up, 17, 20 points, the game's pretty much over because their offense is designed to limit possessions. And in turn, guess who else's possessions you limit? Your own. So if we're running the ball, but we're not scoring, we're getting or Brian Kelly calls them goals, not field goals, just goals, like soccer. You're going to limit your own possessions. And I love that we're struggling mightily at the half. And then first thing out of the box for NBC, hey, Clemson's up 52-7 at the half. Oh, well, that's fantastic. So just putting those two together, as nice as it is to have the running game, it makes sense in theory. But everything we've talked about, you've got to expand that passing game, or you're going to limit your own possessions. And Clemson's firework offense is going to put points on the board, and now you don't have any time to get back in the game.
For sure. I think if we go down 14 to Clemson, game's over. If we're down 10, I think we still have a fighting chance. But if you're down 14, that's it. It's over. If you asked me last week, I would have said 7-0 with a medium degree of confidence. And now I could say fairly confidently 6-1. So I thought we had a fighting chance against Clemson. And I still think we do. Make no mistake about it. And we'll get into that the more we get closer to that week. But as it stands now, nothing is indicative that we have the it factor to make sure that not only can we play with them, but also if things get a little bit away from us from drive to drive, that we're going to be able to put it together in the second half and come back. So that's the thoughts as of now. Obviously, a lot can change, but 6-1 is my preliminary thoughts.
Now, if we go and beat Pitt 42-0, is that going to change your opinion?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. Yeah,
it's a week-to-week
thing,
malleable. Right? It's a week-to-week thing. We tend to have short attention spans and memories, and I think we could play awful and still play Clemson tight. Right, it's a big game. It's in November. It's hyped up. You know how Miami beat the doors off us a couple years ago. Yet we're awful any other game they played. That happens, right? I think we can definitely hang with Clemson. I don't like this transitive property thing too, right? Like, well, if Clemson beat Georgia Tech by 900 and we struggle with Louisville, there's no way we're going to hang with Clemson. Like, come on, it's not how football works, right?
The transitive property is a fan thing. It's a way to justify your team's potential or whatever. That's all it is. You're right. It's not real.
No. It's just you hear it and it's you want to keep everyone's head level. I think after the game, a lot of people just assumed that Clemson game is don't even show up, boys. We're gonna get embarrassed. which isn't the case in Notre Dame's history. Even when we've lost big games, they've tended to be close, right? Georgia, both games. And I think, not talking Alabama or the semifinal there, but I think we're going to be in store for a good game. But I think we should let's put Horsemen and Juice together, just to mush through this here. So Michael, I'll let you go first as the guest. Just take it away. Whatever you're feeling, go with it.
Okay. I'll do the Horsemen and then the Juice in my nuts after. So my 4 Horsemen going 4-1. Well, real quick, I wanted to just put defense, but I was like, well, that's not original. But I went with Kyron Williams. The guy, even though our offense only scored 12 points, he just impresses me. Every week you're seeing something different and better from him. He clinched the game for us. I mean, he's a tough runner. He's a hard runner. He gets the job done. He's elusive. He's a good running back. So I gave it to him. Number 3 was we got to come up with a better nickname though. Michael Mayer. He's not Whittle Kittle. He's not Baby Gronk. He needs to come up with his own nickname. But that guy he should have had 2 touchdowns, and just for an 18-year-old freshman, he's just so impressive. So impressive. Number 2 was the Joker, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Guys everywhere. Had I think 2 tackles for loss. And that was huge, because the one thing on our defense that seems to be a secret sauce or anti-secret sauce, we cannot stop running quarterbacks. Once they can start running, we seem to have trouble. So having him on the field, he's our fastest defender in the linebacking position, so that was huge. But then number 1 is Clark Lee, defense. Like, just every week, the only soft spot was that well-designed play by Louisville where we had 2 linebackers chasing their running back up the sideline, and it was a big pass. That was credit to Louisville on that one. That was a well-designed play. So, it's just that the defense comes to play every single week, and I love watching it. Now, the juice in my nuts moment goes back to my number 3 Horseman, Michael Mayer. Are you kidding me? Stiff arm and a hurdle? Like, are you serious with this kid?
That's not human for a tight end.
Right? I turned to my fiance and I'm like, hey, by the way, he's 18 years old. That's a freshman. We get him not just the rest of this year. We get him next year and the year after, before he can even declare to go to the NFL. Are you kidding me? Now, if we can just get a quarterback that can hit him up the seam and on the sidelines, then, we got something.
He's
but
coming.
That guy's, oh my God. Like, it was all like one motion. Stiff arm, get out of my way. I'm going to hurdle you. And keep my feet, by the way.
Yeah, and he only went down because of the hurdle and like the off balanceness. Like, you can't take that kid down. And by the way, he liked our tweet, our GIF of him. He liked it after the game. He went to the dressing room and gave us a good like. So shout out to Michael if he ever wants to come on the show. Dude. He's got a spot anytime. Same thing with Tommy Tremble's his mother liked a tweet we had about Tommy. So you guys are always welcome on the show.
Absolutely. Mine will look extremely similar, and I think it's going to probably look similar for all of us because it was obvious that there was a lot of shortcomings. So very few guys stood out. I'm not going to get statistical in any manner. It's just strictly the guys who went out and did their job, which is kind of the Horseman way. Kyron Williams, what else is there to say about him? Great runner, and he's right now carrying the team. So literally, he's carrying the team. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, he's all over the field. He's really coming into his own, almost like shades of Jalen Smith, just like sideline to sideline. He's there in every single play. He's all over the place. Love the guy, and he absolutely crushes people when he catches them too in open field, which is great. Kyle Hamilton, also another guy all over the place. He had a huge stop. I mean, I said specifically, I tweeted out, death taxes and a 3rd down stop by Kyle Hamilton. I don't know why people still throw the ball at him. I don't even like. We could probably look up the numbers. I don't think he's given up a reception all year. It's like thrown his way. He's just so special, and we are so lucky of a program to have him. And everyone should cherish every second we have of Kyle Hamilton while he's in this program before he declares, and is a future number 1 overall pick because he's trending in that direction. And then my last guy, Clark Lay. I mean, the defense in general, especially, those two prior guys I mentioned were fantastic. And then, Clark is just leading the way, scheme wise and just coaching these guys up to be in the right spot at the right time, make the right calls. And the defense, there was one play where we got beat, and that's pretty much it. Other than that, it was completely shut down, and that's why I had so much confidence, and I'm sure that's why most fans had so much confidence that we were going to win. But again, we were just annoyed at the process in doing so. And then the juice in my nuts moment was the exact moment that the clock struck 0, because I knew that we had the win, and that was pretty much it. That was the highlight of the day for me. So, Dylan, if you wanted to share with us all of your guys and your moments, it's all you, sir.
Anything to end that Big Ten football style brutal game. So I didn't pick a fourth horseman. I made it a personal stance not to give anyone on the offense a four horseman. The offense wasn't good enough to deserve it. Although Michael Mayer just does put juice in my nuts. He's going to be an excellent player. Third, I went with Jonathan Dewar because I was really stretching for people to make it. He made his 2 kicks, and that is well above my expectations for him. So
you should have made 3.
He should have made 3, or they could have just threw a play there. But he went 2 for 2, so that's what matters. My second horseman is Kyle Hamilton, like you said. Pass deflection, he was just fantastic. And my first one is Jeremiah Owusu-Komora. He was on all of your lists too. I mean, he had 2 tackles for loss. He's just an absolute animal out there. And I wanted to bring in briefly, because it's really cool when we get to interact with people who are important. And Dane Brugler, the top media scout in the NFL, just the top guy. He should be working for an organization. Really, really good. I asked him 2 questions. I let him know about Kyle Hamilton. I said, this is a kid you got to keep an eye on. And he said, oh, I know. He's like, that guy's going to be a freak to watch. Definitely looking forward to that. So expect Kyle Hamilton to be rated really well. And I asked him, where do you have the Joker? And he said, preseason 32nd best prospect in the NFL's draft coming up. He's only helped himself. So we're looking at a first-round grade for Jeremiah. And I think that's really cool. So big shout out to Dane Brugler for interacting with us. You guys should give him a follow. He does excellent draft analysis. Very good scout. So thanks to him for that. And my juice in the nuts moment was the book touchdown. We took the lead. That was it. It was like, yay, we can score again. And then that's my mild juice in the nuts. It was not a great game, folks.
But the thing with the touchdown, it was a great moment. And then we go for 2 and you totally killed the moment by effing up the 2-point conversion when you didn't need a 2-point conversion.
Yeah, that's fair. At least we scored is kind of how I felt. Like, yay.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man.
Like, not another field goal. That's great. I had us to cover, and it ruined all of my bets. So very, very mad. Let's talk about college football in general, if you guys have nothing else to say on this matter. If we can bury this goddamn game.
Let's put it in the past and let's roll, baby.
It's time to look around. So, Week 7 college football, 2 things worth of note. North Carolina lost to Florida State. They made a ferocious comeback, but were down big in that game. I'm kind of a Florida State fan now for some reason. We were making fun of them all year. But I respect them after the game. I think Jordan Travis is a good quarterback. And I like the Knowles Analytics account. They're pretty cool. Or that guy is pretty cool, or that girl is pretty cool. I don't know the person well enough. So I kind of like Florida State now. And my goal is Florida State's going to run the table and make us look really good. So let's go Seminoles. Another one is Alabama beat Georgia. Kirby smarted it again. They were leading Alabama going into halftime and just did nothing in the second half. Alabama is scary, but Alabama is beatable. That's pretty much it. I think from what else happened, it was kind of a boring week of college football. South Carolina beat Auburn. Oh, yes. Also, how are we doing? You may be asking. Steve, I've got some really, really good news for you, buddy.
Let's go.
Steven.
Oh, man.
Good old Steve went perfect. 4-0 on the week. And the best part is He's now broken 500 on the year. He's 11
We're back
and
in
10.
the black, baby. Let's go.
Steve is in it. I went 3-1. I've now taken the lead at 15-6. I am hitting over 71% of my picks. P-Wagon had a rough week. He went 1-3. And Michael, you were hanging in there. You went 2-2. You're 500 on the year. It's a long season, boys. It's a long season. Lots of room, lots of time for everyone to come back.
And we've now got the data points that there's a ton of upsets and no team is safe. And that's what's, I think, fueled my comeback the last 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, you're taking risks, buddy, and it's working out for you. So let's go. Week 8, we'll blow through them here so we can get to the rest of the fun segments we have. North Carolina State is going to North Carolina. Florida State is going to Louisville. Iowa State is going to Oklahoma State. I forgot the Big 12 was even playing football. South Carolina is going to LSU, and then Michigan is going to Minnesota to start the return of the Big Ten, and that will be College Game Day. So, Michael, you are our esteemed guest tonight. If you are ready, if you need some time to think about it, I can go to Steve. I try to give you guys enough time ahead of the podcast to pick, but if you're ready, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to forget logic, reasoning, historical numbers, and just pick the teams I either like or don't like for whatever reason. Just reasoning is nonsensical. Going with North Carolina because when we beat them, I want it to look better than if they keep losing. I'm taking Louisville over Florida State because since 1993, I will never pick Florida State to win anything. Iowa State over Oklahoma State because I want the Big 12 to completely cannibalize themselves, and Oklahoma State being ranked in the top 10 can't have them winning any more games. South Carolina because they made me look stupid last week. I picked Auburn, and then Minnesota because they're playing Michigan, and that's obvious.
Fair enough.
So, there you go.
Yeah, I'm gonna be going on. Let's see. Okay, UNC versus NC State. I'm going to go with UNC. I think they need to bounce back. They still have hopes, quote unquote, alive, and they're basically battling for their lives. So they have something to play for. They have something to live for. NC State does not. I'm going to go with Florida State. This kid, Jordan, whatever the heck his name is, third string QB, he's getting his shot. He's shining, played decent against Notre Dame, played very well last week, and he's getting his chance to prove himself, and I think he's going to roll with that momentum. Oklahoma State is going to win because Iowa State is abysmal. Although they do have a couple of frisky games every once in a while, I think they already used their frisky game on Oklahoma. And then I'm going to go with LSU. And just because as much as I think that South Carolina has a great chance to compete in this game, LSU at home, they have to win that game. They literally don't have a choice. They might get disbanded as a program if they lose this game. And then I think I'm going to rock with Minnesota. Minnesota at home. Michigan, I'm pretty sure, has had a couple of guys sit out the season from COVID. This is their first game of the season. The whole Big Ten is in disarray right now. So I think I'm going to go with the home dogs. I'm assuming that they're home dogs.
That's really annoying because I have all the same picks, and I'm considering just switching to another pick here. You're going through, and I'm like, please take South Carolina. Your picks are going
to make sense too? But both y'all's picks are actually going to make some sense? What is that? Rookie mistake.
I need to continue the run. I need to stay above 500.
All right, I'll go through it real quick. Maybe I can talk myself into taking someone else. I like North Carolina State. I think they won me some money last week, but there's no way North Carolina could afford to lose this game after that tough one to Florida State, so I think they win. Florida State, Louisville, I just liked what I saw from Florida State. I took Oklahoma State as well. Like you, Mike, I'd rather Ohio State win or Iowa State win. Iowa, Ohio, they're the same thing, right? So, okay, State's going to win. I went LSU as well. South Carolina really impressed me the last couple weeks, but LSU's not as bad as their record suggests. And then the big one, I was flip-flopping here. I was thinking, you know what, Michigan might be good, but we hate Michigan. And Minnesota's actually graded higher in terms of SP+. and they're also returning a third-year starting quarterback. So I'm taking the Golden Gophers as well. So Steve and I got the same. You're not too different from us, Michael. We know P-Wagon. The only difference is he took South Carolina to beat LSU. So I think that's it.
My takeaway is that I'm about to gain 4 wins on y'all. That's what I just learned.
All right.
Look at that. Look at that. No,
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. You took.
I took Iowa State, South Carolina, and Louisville. Only common were
Right.
North Carolina, and Minnesota.
Well, there you go. You're gonna catch up with
That's
me
it.
real soon. So last week, someone suggested bringing back an old segment, and you know what? I'm just gonna let Steve take this one away. I'm gonna let him explain what the hell it is, and then we'll get into it.
So, whether people agree with it or not, there is this caricature of Americans of being totally ignorant to international culture.
Really?
You don't think, or you don't say rather, but yeah. So, Dylan being our Canadian-based guy, we've because me and P-Wagon over the last couple of years, starting from year 1, now we're moving into year 3 now. We've oftentimes had such stupid, ignorant questions because we just had no idea anything about kind of the inner workings of Canada. But we are learning, and this is a learning segment. So we are back on Ask a Canadian. We are going to our resident Prime Minister of Canada, which would be Dylan, and we're gonna ask him some dumb questions, and he's going to explain to us how dumb we are by highlighting the intricacies of his great country. So, Dylan, just recently was Canadian Thanksgiving. I need to know a lot. I wanted to ask last week, but I was like, you know what? I'll defer. I'll punt to next week because it'll be good for the segment. So if you can give us a bunch of details about Canadian Thanksgiving, what was the kind of the founding ideals about it? Why is it so early in the year and not when Americans have it? And kind of what's the traditions? What do you eat? The whole 9.
So I'm gonna disappoint you. You guys have asked this before years ago. And I didn't know then, and I don't know now where it came from. I thought maybe it was like a Commonwealth thing, but I don't think any of the other Commonwealth countries celebrate Thanksgiving. I think it's just a Canadian and American thing. I don't know if it's just because of the weather is nicer in October. I prefer it because you're not having all the turkey season too close together, right? Like, you got Christmas, and then you guys have Thanksgiving late in November, so it's not much of a break. Is where you have it early October. I don't know the history. I honestly am shamed for not knowing that. But it's a lot of the same kind of values there too, right? It's about family, it's about giving back, being grateful, things like that. Oftentimes there's an election around that time, so it's kind of like, hey, let's get together and talk about things. But really, it's the same kind of food. We do turkey, we do stuffing, we do potatoes. Pumpkin pie. It's a good time. It's a lot like your Thanksgiving, I would imagine. It's just in October. So okay. I'm sorry for the anticlimactic answer there. I don't know if you guys have multiple, but we'll go with Michael if he's got one.
Well, I've got a few because I don't know when I'll get this opportunity again. So just shoot the shot. Well, the first one. And I don't know if this is still a thing, but I know it was. Why is milk sold in a bag?
It's sold in the bag in parts of Canada. That's an Eastern Canada thing. Bagged milk, as we call it. I don't know why it's done in a bag. You get 3 1 liters of like bagged milk, and I grew up with it. And you gotta have a thing that cuts the bag, and then you just pour it out of its thing. I prefer it. I find it fresher than cartoned milk. But yeah, that's an Eastern Canadian thing. The reason I cannot imagine why there would be a specific reason other than that's just the way it was done. But I'm glad you asked about that because that is a Canadian thing in some parts of the country.
That is funny.
Follow up. You got 3 bags. Is that because it's so highly likely one of those is going to tear on just something and you lose a bag? Like it's like 2 are backups?
I think it's like an alternative to 2 liter. It's like you get a little more with the bag, so you can justify the price increase. And I don't think I've ever busted a bag. Like it's there, you gotta take scissors or something and cut a corner. Like it's not the easiest thing to puncture. It's strong plastic. It's good Canadian plastic.
Oh, okay.
So it's weird, because across countries, across cultures, even it's funny how words have one meaning in one culture and another meaning in a different culture. Because you guys call it bagged milk, but in America we call it Lena Dunham. But anyway, sorry, that's a ricochet shot for the ages. My next culturally ignorant question is that the United States, we have Independence Day, obviously red, white, blue, Americana, apple pie, the whole nine. In France, they have Bastille Day, when they stormed the Bastille, beginning the French Revolution and whatnot, and that's obviously culturally important to them. I know that you guys do have Canada Day. I don't know anything about it, so if you can beam with some pride for your country and put on for them, please describe that to us.
Oh, it's the start of the free agency period in hockey. No, that's.
Are you serious?
It is that day, but that's not the reason why it's Canada Day. It's
that would have been awesome.
Yeah, they put it on Canada Day. That's the day we officially became a country. So Canada's Confederation was signed in the Constitution Act of 1867, July 1st. So that's just our birthday. That's the Canada's birthday, just like July 4th is your day of independence. That's day of Canada becoming an actual country. So that's what we celebrate 3 days before you, and it's the same kind of stuff like barbecue, music, lots of beer.
I was going to ask any sort of traditions.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Lots of Canadian music being played on radio for once.
Like Celine Dion.
No, I said Canadian music.
Again, I'm an ignorant idiot, so you're teaching.
No, she is Canadian. It's just, we don't claim her, I guess.
Isn't Alanis Morissette Canadian also?
Yes, she is. That's my girl. Jagged Little Pill.
Isn't it ironic?
Yeah, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the importance of Canada Day. Same kind of thing. We're 153 now in terms of years. We existed before that. We were just purely a British colony, and then we formed a country. So what else do you guys got?
Like good questions that actually educate the listeners. I'm not going to educate anybody. I got a 2-part question. First one.
Okay.
It's a kind of a yes or no. How common and prominent are royal mounties? Like, are they just everywhere?
Yeah. So, sorry, I got to get a charger, or else this thing's gonna die on me. So the Royal Canadian Mountie Police, the RCMP, that's our police. The image you'll see of these big, stupid hats riding horses, red. That's not too common. You'll see that every now and then. It's like it's just a police officer. He's got his protective vest and his blue little thing.
So have they graduated to motorized vehicles?
Yes, they have.
Oh man, because I want to know if it was some sort of Canadian rite of passage to be handcuffed backwards on the horse and be taken away.
I don't know what the symbolism of the horse is. I've seen them before. Sometimes you'll see them walking around town, and you'll just on their horse, and you'll just take a picture and be like, "Look at this idiot! What is he doing on a horse?" But no, they're not too often that you actually see those. So we're not a complete caricature, but they do exist.
Right. And it is worth noting, I got a lot of my great Canadian questions from the song "Oh Canada" by Five Iron Frenzy. So
well, there you go.
They have a song about Canada, and I was like, let me grab some pieces of that. What you got, Steve?
That's pretty much all the questions I had. Was the 2 that I pointed out today. Okay. Let's see.
I've got one more for him. Unless you got one.
I think I had one here. I'm trying to think.
Well, you think and let Michael ask.
Yeah.
All right. This is just a yes or no, real quick. Are moose crossings as common as deer crossings in we have them in the U.S.? You see moose crossings, is that a thing?
By deer crossing, do you mean beware of deer sign, or
yeah, specific... on a rural road, you'll see a deer crossing. Look out, watch, there's gonna be deer. Is that there's a bunch of moose crossing signs?
Yeah, okay. For sure. Lots of them, lots of moose. Okay. Especially where I grew up. kind of woodsy, so you got to be careful on the highway. My friend's dad actually hit a moose once. It's quite quite something. Yeah, those are big. Okay. Those are big boys.
Okay.
And go ahead, Steve.
No, please. You finish yours because mine will finish out the section because it's silly and stupid.
My last question is somewhat educational, mainly for me, because I don't know. I hear it all the time. It's referenced quite often in comedy and otherwise. I don't know what it is. Please explain to me Tim Hortons.
So you know Dunkin' Donuts?
Yes, I go there too frequently.
So imagine if Dunkin' Donuts was like kind of part of who you are as a country for some reason.
Hey, America runs on Dunkin'. Don't even get it wrong.
I know Dunkin's pretty big in New England for sure. I don't know if it's quite as big everywhere else, but Tim Hortons is this national chain of mediocre coffee and some decent donuts, and you get some food there. It's just a Canadian fast food chain. They are there's a few of them in the States, in Michigan on that side of the border, in New England a bit, and they are abroad. And anywhere there's an airport in Canada or connecting to Canada, you should find a Tim Hortons. It's just it's become this thing where they try to make it like this is part of who we are as Tim Hortons, and it's kind of weird, but it is a popular coffee shop basically.
Okay.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thank you.
And my final extremely...
Before I should mention, Tim Horton was a famous hockey player, and he started this food chain. So it's called Tim Hortons, named after the hockey player.
Oh.
He is a person. That's not just a random name.
All in on Canada with that one.
and that's actually going to transition beautifully into my last question here. Why was Taylor Hall too much of a bitch to sign with the Boston Bruins?
Yikes. Well, Taylor Hall was an Oiler. That's my team. So I think from what I heard, the money wasn't there on one-year deals from other teams. It was Buffalo the only one. So he figured on a one-year contract, he can hit free agency after COVID and get a fair market value. So I'm sorry to ruin your silly question with a serious answer.
He did say that he wanted to win a championship, and Boston.
He did, and I think he meant next year.
Yeah, because I don't understand how you talk up how you're willing to take a short-term deal and take less money if you're going to have a chance to compete for a championship. Say that you're interested in the Bruins and then land in Buffalo. It's just the square, the square peg doesn't fit into the circular hole there.
Well, clearly, Steve, he wanted to go to a city with lots of culture and great weather. So Buffalo.
Yeah, Buffalo wings and despair.
Sorry to our Buffalo listeners. I just had to.
All right.
Canada's not as cold as you think, by the way. That's something I got to get out there. It's a myth.
I literally just think that it's just a frozen tundra, like 9 months out of the year.
Really, I'm actually pretty sure like Wisconsin gets colder.
I believe
it. Okay, so
come down to South Texas. It was 89 degrees today. It was fantastic.
Yeah, see, that's too much. I couldn't imagine doing like a Texas summer. I would boil. We do still have Pitt to get through. If you guys are up for it.
We can buzz through in a couple minutes.
Yeah, for sure.
Because that is kind of what the podcast was for. So I like this. This was fun. We should maybe look into bringing back this segment more often because it's educational. So let's get into the Pitt Panthers. They are 3-3. They won their first 3 games and lost their last 3 games. They beat Louisville 23-20. So that should give you an idea of where they are as a caliber of team. They've had some rough losses. They lost to North Carolina State by 1 in a heartbreaker, and they lost to Boston College by 1, and then they got beat by Miami by 2 scores. So they're a decent team. If you just take a look at SP Plus, Bill Connolly on Twitter does it for ESPN. Notre Dame is 7th still in the country. The offense only slid a few spots. We're the 13th ranked offense, the 8th ranked defense. Pitt, on the other hand, is the 38th team in the country, 90th offense, 17th defense. And that's something you see in the EPA numbers, too, is that Pitt is a really good defensive team. So that could be a little worrying for our struggling offense. We average 33 points per game, and we give up 11. They average 29 points a game and let up 20. So before I get your quick thoughts on the game, quarterbacks are always important. Ian Book, QBR 69.9. Nice. Excellent number. That's 23rd in the country. Kenny Pickett is the quarterback for Pitt. I feel like I know that name, so maybe he's been there for a while. He's 62.641st in the country, so this is a somewhat capable quarterback, decent with his legs, but mostly a pro-style passer. So FPI gives Notre Dame a 78.9% chance of winning, and from there I will let you guys take it away.
Before we do, I believe Pickett was out last week with an injury. Do we have any sort of update on that?
Nope, I assumed he was still there.
I'll look it up now, and sir.
Well, I didn't realize Pickett was out either. I don't know. They're so tough, and you look at the games they played this year, and they're proving to be tough again. I mean, 1 point loss to North Carolina State, 3-point win against Louisville, 1 point loss against Boston College, and yeah, they lost 31-19 to Miami, but I feel like I would put us in Miami's category, and we should be better. But I've seen a few Miami games now. They have a explosive offense. Derek King can play, so I feel like we might be in that, where Louisville was, that one possession game at the end of the day. Kenny Pickett if he's playing, can play. He's already thrown for 1,300 yards this year. He's doubled up Ian Book. It's Pitt, man. It's tough. It doesn't matter. Miles Boykin at the end of the game to save our season in 2018. What triple overtime in 2012. I mean, you know what? Maybe we need one of those games because that signifies we're going to go undefeated. I don't know. I feel like maybe if we blow Pitt out, it won't be a good omen for the rest of the season.
Triple overtime, missed field goal.
Yeah, all of it. Yeah, but if I had to make we're gonna win. I do believe that. I don't think it's this Notre Dame team outside of the Clemson in the ACC has the most talent on any roster, and like Steve said, as far as the Horsemen, if you just do your job, we're gonna win. By how much? That's debatable. And then you factor in, just for whatever reason, the Pitt factor. Who knows? And this is our first road game, correct? We're going to Pitt, right?
Yeah, first road game.
So
and Pitt plays this tight, man. It's a historically tight game for Notre Dame, and they're actually a quasi-historic program. I know we don't think of Pitt when we think of big schools, and they're not anymore. But they claim like 9 national championships, and I mean like 1 or 2 of them is legitimate. So take that with a grain of salt. But they've been around for a while. They're an old school team. They're really kind of a Big Ten team. That's the kind of the style they play. It's always at least has reminded me of a Big Ten team. So Pitt's fun, but Pitt's never fun to play, if that makes sense, because it's just a struggle. I mean, you should know, Steve. I mean, they play in your Steelers' backyard, don't they?
They do indeed. Steelers, by the way, 5-0. I have yet to see this fall any of my football teams lose. So let's hope we continue that trend, and I think we do. I mean, I'm going to be pretty short and sweet with this. We've gone pretty long. Appreciate you guys listening all the way to the end. Yeah, I think it's going to be some scoregami. Notre Dame wins 31-13. I think that we're pretty much all set on in that regard. Defense is fantastic. Offense, I think we're going to move on, learn the lessons. I would like to see a lot more screens. At least 3 to 4 running back screens would be great. But that's just on my wish list. More so than anything, what to look out for, assuming that Pickett is back. He was out this past week with an ankle injury. Pat Narduzzi said he was a little bit banged up, but he should be back because they said he was getting stronger and better. Kenny Pickett, heading into this past college football Saturday, so obviously the numbers would have changed, but he was leading the NCAA. He was the number 1 passer in the NCAA of completions on passes 20-plus yards downfield. He has 16. So I think that this is going to be awesome to see. This is a team that wants to spread it out against us. They want to get down the field. They want to throw that ball down the seams, down the sidelines. So Kyle's going to be put to the test. So is Sean Crawford. These corners are going to get put to the test. They're definitely going to try to spread us out and get the ball downfield. And I think how we respond to this game and that style of play is going to be really indicative of some teams coming up, which, again, we know the obvious one. So that's my go-to look, but I think the Irish win handedly.
Yeah, so usually we pick this as the trap game. Pitt's always a tough one. I would usually pick this one to be the bogey game. But given how we performed this last week, I think we're actually going to be really, really amped up for the next one. I think we're going to play a lot better, and I think the game plan and the coaching will be better. But I don't think we're going to hang 40 or anything like that because Pitt is a good defense. I got to reconcile those two things where we're going to play better, but we're playing a really good defense. So I'm going 31-10 Irish. That's still 3 scores. That's still a blowout. That's still something to be happy with. The line, by the way, is Notre Dame 9.5. So that's what Vegas is thinking of us right now. Not too thrilled with the way we played. Pitt's pretty good. That could be a tough one, but I think we'll handle them. I think we might struggle with we're not going to shut them out. I think their offense will find ways to extend plays, but for the most part, our defense should control this game, and I think we'll be more efficient when we're down in the end zone, and that's going to result in touchdowns. Mike?
I realized I didn't give a score prediction. I'm going 27-13. I don't know. Maybe I'm underselling it in terms of like, oh, we're gonna fix it, we're gonna come back, but Pitt's defense is good. We have a history of being they're a thorn in our side. So I'm going to say 27-13. The defense is going to show up to play like it does every week. And 13 might be overshooting it. It might be 27-10 or less. But at Notre Dame at 9.5, I think we cover that. So.
Well, that's well said. I think we did a pretty good job here. So I think we could kind of start wrapping it up here. We post, thanks to Steve's hard work, good gifts throughout the game of top plays, and they get shared a lot. All we ask for you guys is just to, if you're going to tweet it yourself instead of giving us a retweet or something, just tag us, just give us credit. That happened this week with Barstool Irish, just used our GIF, and we don't mind it. We want you guys to enjoy our content, but to credit it, and so that's something important. If you see, just to we're glad for you to share it, but just give us a good old @ and Twitter engagement. We're on pace right now for about 680 followers come November 1st. We want to get to 700. So share it. Let your friends know. Let their friends know. Let your dog know. If your dog has a Twitter account, I'm sure he does. You got to give us a follow. We got to get to 700 before November because we are building the Four Horsemen podcast, both the podcast and the Twitter account. And we love having engagement, right? That's why we do this. We do this to get fans. We do this to meet Michael and get him on the show, to get you guys on Twitter. Because ND is a big fan base. It's a smart fan base, and it's one that I love quite dearly. So do you guys have anything to say before we sign off here?
Thank you guys again. And just, I guess, put my information out there at MJPALK21 on Twitter. And no sparklers, all fireworks on Saturday. Let's do it.
I agree. And that's all thoughts I have on my end. Go Irish.
Go Irish.
Go Irish. Beat the Panthers.